All right, folks, this is Harris Sultan, and I have a favorite senator in America right now. I like Senator Lindsey Graham, but I really like Senator Randy Fine. He's a fine senator, and he's in the news, and he's being attacked by everyone, left, right, and center, even by some Republicans, for his latest tweet, which when I saw it, first I had a little chuckle, and then I was like, you got it completely wrong. What's so wrong with what he said? Because he is standing up for American values, or he's standing up for Western values. Before I show you his tweets, let me make it clear. When you zoom out, when we look at macro level, when we look at where our future is headed, you have to look at some strategic steps on a civilizational level. So one of those strategic steps that we took at a civilizational level was to let in Islam into Western countries, okay? It was done with good intentions, thinking that we live in a post-ethno-nationalist world after the end of World War II. We are all equal. When we bring in people, everything's going to be fine. People will integrate and assimilate. That was obviously a mistake, because when people come to Western countries, they don't change their culture. They don't leave the culture of their parents. The best thing that you can hope for is that the incoming culture is not hostile to the host culture, which has mostly worked for the Japanese people, Vietnamese people. Indians, I know, get a lot of hate, but Indians are not hostile. They might have some cultural practices that the West finds disgusting, maybe, but they're not actually actively hostile to the West. But there is one culture where rolling the dice didn't work out, which was Islam, okay? Islam is very strong. Islam does not conform, because that's how Muslims are raised. They believe that they have the best value system, they have the best values, they have the best religion, they have the truth on their side, and they need to export that to the world. And even if they go to a Western country as refugees, they are under no obligation to conform to Western ideals. That's how Islam sees itself. So it's a very unique culture. Right or wrong, I'm not getting into that, okay? That's up to you to decide. But if you live in the West, then you should back Western values, because if it weren't for Western values, you wouldn't be the greatest civilization ever known to mankind. So Islam has now made its way into Europe and now starting to raise its head in America as well. You've got Zoran Mamdani quoting the Quran and Muhammad. He's become the mayor of America's arguably most important and biggest city. Then you have other Muslim enclaves like Dearborn, Michigan, and in Florida and in Texas. So forget about Muslims for a moment. Islam is spreading. So you got to look at it from this lens. Western values versus Islamic values. Western values make us behave in a certain manner. Western values lead us to a different kind of lifestyle, which means go out, make money, enjoy your life, travel, capitalism, individual liberties, respect for human rights and even animal rights, or have dogs instead of children. Okay? Not saying again it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just telling you where Western values lead us. Now, conversely, Islamic values make you lead a different lifestyle. Grow your beard, encourage your women not to have higher education, do hijab or even burqa if that's better. Get married young, make lots of babies, don't worry about going out or having fun. That's Islamic values in action. This we see in the West as a problem. It's not just limited to the Muslim world. We have imported that. So it's a part of our ecosystem and our culture as well. We have to deal with that. So what happens now that you understand is the Islamic values versus Western values, all you have to do is to decide which side are you on? What do you want? Which direction you want your country to go into? So now that you understand, let me tell you what exactly is happening. So this woman who's born and raised in New York, I believe, tweeted this, okay? 2.6 million views. Nardine Kiswani. She said, finally, New York City is coming to Islam. That's a declaration. What do you mean New York City is coming to Islam? America is not a Muslim country, okay? And New York City is not going anywhere. Yes, we have imported a little bit of Islam. So this is extremely offensive, but nobody paid attention to that. Not caring about any offense that this might cause, she goes, dogs definitely have a place in society, just not as indoor pets. Yes, according to Islamic values. These are your values. These are not our values. Like we've said all along, they are unclean. So, this is what they do. They poke you. By the way, she's a massive pro-Hamas simp. Again, she's a Muslim. She speaks with a New York accent, but she's not American. She's still a Muslim. So Senator Randy Fine, that fine senator, responded, and he said this: if they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. Now, he could have been a bit more cleverer, because Muslims are just the activists who are applying Islamic values, who are trying to import Islamic values and spread Islam's tentacles across the West. So Muslims are the conduit. Muslims are the actors. But what we should really fear is Islam. So if he had said, if they force us to choose the choice between dogs and Islam, then that's not a difficult one. That's what he should have said. But I get it what he means. But the moment he said that, the entire world just went crazy. So let me show you what he's been dealing with. So Piers Morgan, as always, a cuck that he is, he goes, "You disgusting prick." What's disgusting about that? Piers, what is disgusting is a major New York City Muslim leader saying we must give up our dogs because New York City is coming to Islam. Perfectly fine. We will not be shamed into being conquered like the Europeans. Absolutely. I choose my dog. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. We do not have to give them an inch. Okay. Always remember this. They came to your prosperous, civilized world after they ruined their own. Yes, they will tell you that it's the West that ruined their countries. Okay, fine, whatever. We don't care. You're a failure. Doesn't matter. Make excuses all you want. We don't care. You are a failure. And you said that, oh, my country is a shithole. Can I please come to your countries? We said, okay, you can come. But at that point, we should have said, you are not bringing in your values. We're not going to let you dictate. We're not going to let you modify our lifestyle to accommodate your values, because your values have created the Middle East, Afghanistan, Syria, Bangladesh, Pakistan. These are failed societies. So we are not importing failed values. And look at this Indian guy, Khanna. He's saying we must call this what it is, disgusting bigotry. These Hindu liberals, I have no idea how stupid they are. Muslims have been banging them in India for so long. These people should be the first ones to raise the alarm, but they're not, because there is something about the mind of an immigrant. It always has this inferiority complex, which is inbuilt for some reason in their brains, that, oh, they look down on us. You idiots, they don't look down on you. If they looked down on you, then they wouldn't have let you in. They opened their countries, they opened their doors, they embrace you. They gave you an equal seat at the table, so much so that you could speak against their country, their identity, their history, everything. That's how much they open their doors for you. Try doing that in India. Even in Indians are very nationalistic people, and I hope they stay that way. My dear Indians, do not let anyone tell you that your country is shit, especially when they come to India. Okay? If your country is shit, what are you doing there then? This is the attitude that the West needs to adopt and need to. I mean, obviously, Congressman Randy Fine is doing his job, but the rest of the Westerners need to do that. Every Westerner, whether you're a lefty or a righty, well, lefties, of course, they're not going to do that because they're bleeding heart lefties and they just bend over backwards. It's in their DNA to simp for anything that is anti-Western. So again, Congressman replied, you really want to make common cause with those who want to ban Americans from having dogs? I look forward to the debate. Bring it on. Absolutely. Absolutely. Jake Tapper, he said, disgusting bigotry. And Randy Fine replied with this. So you're okay with this? I just don't understand. How are you not offended by this tweet? I just don't understand. Can you imagine going to Qatar or Saudi Arabia or the UAE and you tell them that you're not allowed to slaughter animals the way you do as halal meat? You can't do it. Imagine that. You will either be jailed or you will be deported, and rightfully so. You as an outsider has no freaking right to change the values of the country that is already great. It's working out. Look, the UAE, it's working out for the UAE as well. This is why I have actually softened my stance towards the UAE. Whatever it is, the UAE did a better job with multiculturalism than the West. Western values need to be tweaked. The Cyberpunk Dingo made an excellent video. Go check it out on his channel. How Singapore handled Islamism and is surrounded by hardcore radical Islamist jihadi organizations. But in Singapore, it's multi-ethnic, it's multicultural, and multi-religious. And for some reason, the Islamists in Singapore are the most tamed ones. They're not oppressed or suppressed. They're fine. They're happy. Go check it out, how they handled it. Yes, of course, it doesn't have Western levels of individual freedoms, which is perfectly fine. I think when you're dealing with foreign cultures who are hell-bent on imposing their values on you, then you need to limit certain individual liberties in favor of collective security. You know, the age-old argument of security versus liberties. Yes, it worked in the West and worked in America, maximizing individual liberties and compromising on your security. But look, when 9/11 happened, you had to trade in some of your individual freedoms for the sake of security. You always need that. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said that those who give up their liberties in favor of security deserve neither. I think Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers, said it. It worked perfectly well. In that context, in the late 18th century, it worked perfectly well. But it cannot work in this day and age. And Eric Swalwell, he said, America is better because of our Muslim community. No, you're actually 2 buildings down because of your Muslim community. But okay, let's just pose it as Islam. I don't care about Muslim or Christians or Hindus or whatever. I don't care about that. We're talking about fundamental values that shape your country. That's how important values are. And I think we're going to stick to American values. We're going to reform American or Western values. We're going to reform them, tweak them a little bit, but we're not going to replace them with Islamic values. That's how we need to be. And we are worse when assholes like this guy spout hate. Every Republican who fails to call out this vitriol only gives it more oxygen. Any Republican who speaks against this, I would say, doesn't understand. You really don't understand. Look, this is how Muslims are saying. U.S. Congressman Randy Fine insulted nearly 2 billion Muslims worldwide. If they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. As I said, if he had said Islam, it would have been much better. But it's the same thing. Muslims are enforcing Islamic values. That's what it is. That's what I said. What a legend. Time to pack up. Go home. Yeah. Don't give up your dogs, guys. Because first, it's dogs. Then it's going to be pigs. Then it's going to be Sharia-controlled zones. They've already done that.
According to the group's vice president, Noor Rabah, the group currently has 30 members, but plans on rapidly expanding to cover the entire city. He describes the Muslim patrols like a neighborhood watch, but on steroids, with members dressed like police officers and driving cars identical to police squad cars. Residents say they're uncomfortable with the patrols, which they describe as being similar to Sharia police. Others have raised doubts about the purpose of the patrols, saying New York's police department is already very diverse, and their only job is to patrol the city streets and protect people from harassment or crime. So why does there need to be a Muslim group tasked with the same job as the police? Even other Muslims have raised questions about the need for the patrols, with residents expressing fears this is just another form of Sharia law enforcement. Similar groups can already be seen in other major European cities in Denmark, Germany, France, Sweden, and Britain. These patrols have been going on for years, and a CNN report caught Muslims from a patrol in London harassing residents. In Whitechapel, one man can be heard insulting a gay man, calling him offensive names and telling him he wasn't welcome in a Muslim area. Others denounce residents for drinking, claiming this is a Muslim area and alcohol is not permitted. They also harassed a woman as she was crossing the street, warning her that her short skirt was not allowed in Muslim areas. And now, with the arrival of these Muslim patrols to New York City, Americans are becoming worried they'll fall under the same harassment for not following Islamic practices.
Your women will not be allowed to go out at night wearing whatever they want to wear. This is the first step. Of course, you start off with the softest target, cute puppies, dogs. In the meantime, look at this. We are being told to keep opening the doors of our cities and towns and villages and states to Muslims. And what Muslims are saying? Have a listen.
Most of my clients are Muslim.
Yep.
I try to work with all Muslims, be it my mechanic, be it my insurance guy, be it whoever it is. I try to create, something Muhammad Sharif would always talk about, nation building.
Yeah. Nation building inside America. This is sectarianism. Just look at the UK. They are voting along religious lines. They don't care what are you offering them, universal health care, tax cuts. They don't care about any of that. If you say, I'm a Muslim, vote for me, then they're encouraging Muslims to just vote for that guy. That's it. That's how simple their equation is. And we are being told that we have to accept this.
We as Muslims, especially in Chicago, can build our own little nation, right?
In Chicago, they can build their own little nation. How long before they demand sovereignty? This is fueling separatism. And of course, the state will crack down at that point. What's going to happen in return? Suicide bombings? Muslims are not easily subduable. These guys love death more than they love life. They tell you that all the time.
We believe that life begins at death. We don't care about death. We love death.
Muslims always have the unbelievers, and that is, we should not fear death. That lack of fear of death is what has always given us power over them.
If you follow woke politics or bleeding heart lefty Democrats politics, or Labour in the UK and Australia, you are pushing your country towards a disaster.
Have everything that we need from top to bottom. The only thing missing, in my opinion, is like our own court system, which, you know, that's one of my side projects.
That's a side project. So he's actually working on that too. Own court system, i.e. Sharia. See that? We have to accept that? I want to play you this. This is my worst nightmare, to see this guy becoming president of the US. Gavin Newsom. So he tweeted and he said, resign now, you racist slob. And that's it. Their tropes, their counter arguments are old, they're outdated. And as I said, you don't need to apologize. We don't need to apologize for who we are, or we don't need to apologize for our values. We allowed them to practice their religion. We allowed them to live prosperous lives. There are many successful Muslim businessmen in the West. But what we're not going to allow is to start losing our values one by one, so they can be replaced by your values one by one. In fact, the time has come for us to reverse the course. We need to say no Sharia, no faith schools, no halal slaughter. So they say that freedom of religion, which they don't have in their value system. Islam doesn't support freedom of religion. You can be a dhimmi, which is only extended to Christian and Jews, by the way. But if you're a polytheist, you can't live under Islam. Some countries allow that because we live in modern countries, but ISIS or Afghanistan don't allow that. Why should they? Because it's not allowed in Islam. That's why Afghanistan brought back slavery. But this is a Western value: respect for human rights, freedom of religion, etc. We did that, but if your freedom of religion comes at the cost of one of our fundamental values, such as we don't like to torture our animals, we don't like it, we hate it, so we're not going to let you halal slaughter. What are they going to do? Then they're going to start doing it on their own in their backyards. By the way, this has actually been allowed in America. Let me show you this. What the hell happened? America, please, America, wake the fuck up. Look at this. What is going on?
According to the ordinance, quote, the owning, keeping, or harboring of pigs, horses, cows, sheep, goats, llamas, domestic fowl, outdoor rabbits is prohibited, and this section does not apply for temporary religious sacrificial purposes as permitted by law.
So Muslims, once a year, they celebrate Eid al-Adha, in which they slaughter cows, goats, and sometimes camels. Around those days, Muslim countries are dirty and filthy, okay? Dirty and filthy. That adds to their third world character. Richer Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they don't allow that. But other countries like Bangladesh and India and Pakistan, poor Indians, they have to put up with this. And now they're telling you to put up with this. They are saying that allow us to slaughter goats and sheep and cows in our backyards, which shouldn't be allowed. But they debated for a while. This happened in Michigan, I believe. And they won. They allowed it in the name of freedom of religion. Why?
Our city is dirty enough. We don't want to make more dirty.
Debates raged on for at least 3 hours at Hamtramck City Hall over the new ordinance of sacrificing animals.
really ridiculous, catastrophic resolution.
If it's not passed, then we are ready to take it to the court for the religious rights.
Religious rights. Look at this guy. And no shame. In his home country, I think he's a Bengali maybe, they have literally slaughtered minorities in their tens of thousands. This is what I mean by Western values. They're taking us for a ride. And if you keep appeasing them, as happened in this case, you're going to lose your country. We have to be offensive, unapologetic about our own values. There's no other way. Throughout human history, human beings, societies and cultures, countries, empires have always fought because they are driven by their set of values, and in their minds they believe their set of values are superior. Any time when any civilization thought that their values are inferior, they've gone extinct. We don't deserve to go extinct. We don't need to go extinct. Western values did create the greatest civilization known to humanity. Everything that you look at around you has been shaped by the West. Every single thing.
State is its constitution.
This was the second debate of the new ordinance, and there was a crowd outside of the City Hall chambers filling out cards to speak, and they were watching it on closed-circuit TV.
No, it's not safe or safe.
Look at this, this pink-haired woman. 100% she's an LGBTQ woman, and 100% she voted a Muslim in Hamtramck. 100%. This is them finding out. Now they're going to be... Animals are going to be slaughtered. And they're going to turn hostile towards women who don't dress in a certain manner. It's going to happen. It's already happened in Europe, so it's going to happen in America.
Or humane.
And eventually, you know what the sad part is? Eventually, these fuckers who put them in power, they're going to flee to white neighborhoods. And then they're going to go over there and then they're going to lecture everyone else about racism. They don't change. These woke tards never live amongst refugees or immigrants. They never do. But they are always ready to lecture you about the benefits.
Because basements or kitchens or backyards are not suitable places for live animal slaughter.
Right.
Many people, including Muslim residents, were against it, citing sanitary concerns if the animals are sacrificed in a home and not in a sterile environment.
You know why some Muslims are actually opposing it? Because they have seen that. I'm telling you, even the cleaner parts turn into shitholes during Eid days.
Especially in the tight-knit neighborhoods of Hamtramck. The ordinance that was passed on Tuesday night says religious sacrificing of animals can be done as long as it is done legally and humanely.
I think
What is humanely in slicing the neck of an animal? The struggle for minutes, 4 or 5 minutes sometimes.
it's the best compromise. We don't want to restrict religious freedoms, and we don't want to keep it random without regulations.
Many Muslims pay a butcher to perform the religious sacrifice, but for some families, it's just not practical, says Nawar Ali with CARE Michigan.
A lot of families will typically do it in the confines of their property, like in their backyard, their garage, and again, dispose of the animal accordingly.
No, what do you mean dispose of? This is pathetic, by the way. They've actually allowed it. When I first moved to Australia, I noticed, the fine system is very good. You get a fine in your mail, you have to pay it. If you don't pay it, other charges get added, and eventually a sheriff is going to come. It's like, oh, shoot. So you try to do the right thing because you don't want to have a fine. But that's a high trust environment. Since then, I've seen in England, because England is inundated by third worlders, people don't care about fines. People don't pay them. If a white person was doing something that was against the council rules, then he would be afraid of getting a fine. But because these people come from third world countries, and now because the numbers are so large, it has become almost impossible to enforce these laws and issue fines to these people. It's become impossible. So the trust is gone. And as a result, you've lost your biggest strength that you had in your hand, which is to fine people and keep people in line. That's what we mean by when you import the third world, you become the third world. The third world is the third world because of its people, the whole system. And out of those people come their politicians who are also corrupt. And as a result, the whole society is corrupt. It's not because the West is bombing them. It's because they didn't follow some fundamental principles like the rule of law, like democracy, like honesty, like developing trust. That's how Western society started. But right now they're conflicted. On the one hand, they have the liberal principles of we're all equal, we have to be humane. On the other hand, we're realizing, no, if we bend over backwards for other cultures, then we are going to lose our values. And when we lose our values, we're going to lose our countries. So it's sad. So yeah, I don't think we should be apologizing. Please don't do it. Senator Randy Fine did well. I think it's not about Muslims. It's not about Hindus or Buddhists or whatever. It's about abandoning or modifying your way of life to accommodate someone else's way of life, which, in our opinion, is backward and primitive and archaic. That's our opinion, and we are free to have that opinion, just like they have their opinion about our Western world order.